what you're saying. Yeah, let's start, Randy. Okay, what do you know?
Good morning, everyone. Is everybody hear me okay? How's the sound? All right, I think as I feel confident in saying when you reflect on your time here at this conference that many of you will say that was the most relevant, the most important conference, the most lessons learned from this session, and we'll get into the reasons why in just a minute. So what this session is about, we have the title that is the psychology and technology of operational efficiency, but in layman's terms, what it means is trying to change your business with new computer software, changing out your enterprise system, and that's what it's, and so everybody goes into that with the idea that I've got to make my business better, and we're going to be talking about some of the challenges and some of the pitfalls in doing that, and I think that that's going to be the real takeaway for you. So I just want to see a show of hands from everyone in this room. How many of you have changed out your computer software, your enterprise system, how you run your business with information technology, however you want to call it? How many have changed that out in the last 3 years? Let's see a show of hands. Okay. How many of you are thinking about doing that? Some hands. Okay. How many are in the process of doing that? All right. Okay, so there's a lot of hands that didn't go up, but okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves, tell them what the company with, what they do with the company, and why this topic is of unique interest to them. And I'll start with you, Al.
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Ali. I'm the founder and CEO at Petro. Petro is a fuel delivery, propane and lubricant management system, Back-Office ERP. We are working with small and medium-sized fleet owners to make them profitable, more automated every day since 2015.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, good morning. I'm Eileen O'Brien. I'm the Director of HR for all family companies. I don't know if anybody's heard of us. We've been around about 160 years. Part of being a Director of HR is also all of the training and development comes up to my department. So when people are looking for implementations, they're looking for me to make sure that everybody's on board. And that's my role.
And my name is Kyle Sheehan. I'm a second generation co-owner of Rural Computer Consultants, back-office software provider specifically for the propane and fuel industry.
And I'm John Coyle, Vice President of Sales for Ad Systems, petroleum software, back office. And for me, this panel has been a lot of fun to put together, but I'm here because I love to see companies become more efficient. When I was in college, I took a minor in productions and operations, all about efficiency, and it's kind of a passion of mine, to do more with less. And that's really what this topic is all about today.
All right, thank you. So today's objective is to provide solutions to the complex challenges from the new information technology that your company will use. And we do emphasize the word complex. And what's interesting is that most companies will go into this with their focus on, well, if I put in this new software, here's all the benefits I'm going to get. And thinking those benefits will just come into my lap and we're going to be singing happy ever after that. We're so glad we put in this new technology. But the hard reality is, the difficult reality is that there are some very, very complex challenges with putting in new computer software. And so what we want to do today is to speak to some of your questions about the real life difficulty of doing that. Why technology hurts, and you can take the face of the person in this slide and you could insert your picture, because I don't know of anyone who has gone through a computer change out and then on the other end of it said, you know, I thought that was a lot easier than I thought it was. Or that they would say, I will never ever do that again. And so here's some of the reasons why it is so difficult to put in new technology. Is number one, that it affects literally every employee. Your messing with people's jobs. It affects every single customer. It affects every single process, every single traditional practice that you have in the company. Nothing is excluded. And it is a big job changing people's jobs. It's a big job going from doing it like this to like this. And then you also have the whole technology piece of it. And then what makes it even more complex is companies have never ever done this before. So you've got the combination of something that's very complex combined with, I've never done this before. And so that's a recipe for lots of reason for failure and lots of reason for frustration. So that's why technology, and in my own personal experience, I've done 3 major implementations in my career, and I would say, and I've also done acquisitions, and I would say I would rather buy a company, an integrated company, 5 times the size of the company that I am, than to try to put in a new computer system. I think that it is that complex. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at this, we're going to carve this piece of pie into 3 manageable pieces. So if you look at it, what our company would look at it from 3 ways. Number 1 is preparing for the project. What should you do so that as you go into the project, you're going to increase your chances of success? The second, and we're going to be talking about the employees, the change, changing people's jobs, changing the culture, resisting the change, and Eileen and the others are going to be speaking about this directly. And finally, we're going to be addressing the customers. And how do you manage this change with your customers? And so I forgot to say one important thing. So if you go back to, see that down in the lower left-hand corner? If you have questions, right, if you could write this down, if you have questions, you can text them to me. I've got my phone right here. And as we're going through and as someone is speaking, if you've got a question, just feel free to text to me. And then what we'll do is we will bring your question up and be able to bring it up at the right time and we'll discuss it. So I think just getting a part of your interaction in this very short 1 hour that we have with the questions you have as we go through this, that's what we want to do. So. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to Ali and the project preparation.
For sure. Actually, I'm gonna start with a very small story. Imagine a small fleet, propane fleet company with 30, 40 trucks. They've been around for a long time. They have hundreds, thousands of loyal customers. They've been successful. And at some point they got excited and said, yeah, you know what? We have to get automated. We have to be more profitable. They're excited. They're getting this new software. You know, the implementation has started. Everybody going to the training. First month passed, second month passed. 6 months later, the owner comes in and says, hello, what's going on? Why is that working? Why ticket goes to the wrong customer? Why truck are not dispatching? Why customer calling the invoices are wrong calculations? Suddenly everybody said, no, we made a wrong mistake. We shouldn't change. Everybody blaming the software. The fact is when the people start thinking, okay, you know what, the IT guy thinks, no, this is the operation guy's responsibility. The operation thinks, no, this is dispatching. Dispatching thinks it's financial. And there is absolutely no owner for this project. Nobody knows what's going on. I can see some heads are shaking. Right? And often I'm seeing people start having, feedbacks out of their own territory. The IT guys start talking about, no, the tax shouldn't be calculated like that. The dispatching guy start talking about, no, the truck maintenance shouldn't be like this. This is a common, challenge. Most of the company changing their software dealing with. If you are in that situation, you are not alone. Okay? But how we can fix it, that's the reason we are here today. How we can come out of this disaster. First thing first, who's familiar with the concept of Kaizen, Japanese Kaizen? All right. Let me make it like this. 1 week is like 80 hours. Who thinks within 80 hours in a week can improve their business only 1%? Who can improve their business only 1% within a week? Show of hands. Okay. If you think about it, if you can improve it 1% per week, 1 year later, you have 52% improvement. That's the Kaizen. Just try to improve it 1% better. Okay? I'm gonna go to my slide here as well, then I remember my notes. The fact is, if you want to start such projects, first thing first, you need to have a project manager on your side. Take the leadership. Do not start communicating with your vendor from different angles. Make one point of contact as the leader of this project. Then all your team talking to that point, that person talking to one person in the company. Because, for example, this is my company, and John start talking to John, Mario start talking to Kyle, and everybody talking to everybody. Everybody loses control. Nobody is certain what's going on. Resistance gonna come up. We are all human. We all hate to change. All of us, including myself. Simple as that. Who's the iPhone user? If I give you the most recent Android, are you gonna switch? Here's Android user. I give you the most recent iPhone, are you gonna switch? There you go. That's the proof of concept. Even you get the best everything, we don't like to change. But the change management is a big thing. How we can manage the change. I'm gonna let Carl maybe have some feedback here. I wanna hijack the whole part.
Well, I don't think you're hijacking at all, Ali. We're the same way when we're implementing software in any situation. Is we really like to have that main point person, and we do the same thing on our side. We're assigning a main point person to work directly with you. We're a firm believer in everyone delivers the same product, right? We're all delivering propane, we're all delivering fuel oils. We're all doing it a little bit differently, though, right? So your book of business is a little bit different from the person sitting right next to you even today. And we need to learn that book of business to help you implement the software in the best capability that we can.
So I got a question for all the software vendors. Can you recognize when you've just sold your software and your client's beginning to implement it, that they are nowhere close to being prepared for a successful implementation? And if you see, do you ever see that? And number two, what do you do when you see that?
I'll go first. Yeah, I've seen it, unfortunately. There are companies that think software is going to solve all problems and don't necessarily address, some of the bigger issues. And from the very beginning, if they don't have the right project manager, we don't have ownership from management and the ownership of the company saying this is something that we have to do to every employee, then it's going to be a challenged implementation. So the best implementations are those that have ownership that is on board. Make sure every employee knows we're doing this. It's happening. Get on board. And ultimately, if you can't get on board, you're going to go out the door because it's important for the rest of the company to go forward. When we see something that's not going well, our goal is to address it with ownership or those that are working, that we sign a contract with as early as possible and turn that ship and get it moving in the right direction. And those are difficult conversations Because sometimes that person they identified as their project manager might be the problem. Or the employees that are supposed to be supporting that project manager aren't giving that person the support they need. So it's really important for us to get involved as early as we can, right that ship, and really get ownership to help drive the direction of that project going forward.
And Eileen's going to speak to the resistance to change and how do you navigate through all of that. So Kyle, or to my question, do you ever see that when you know this project is destined for a rocky road because they're not ready for it?
Absolutely. I mean, failure is a part of life. We've all experienced a failure on one level or another. And sometimes it's from the vendor side, sometimes it's from the consumer side. And bringing people along on that journey is part of being transparent too. I'm a firm believer in that transparency. When you've made that decision, notifying the rest of the organization and finding those people that you know are going to be resistant to change. And it may be shocking to you. You may see your driver say, well, my oldest driver is going to have the biggest problem, and I've seen that go the opposite direction. I've seen the oldest driver embrace that and say, this took weight off my shoulders. I'm not responsible for determining when a customer needs a delivery anymore. I don't need to worry about this at midnight and keep myself awake at night and wake up in a panic thinking, did I let somebody run out? So bringing those employees along and being transparent is crucial throughout this entire process.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Anything else on the project planning and leadership and what needs to be done up front and what we want? With the limited time, this is very, very limited time, by the way. We're just setting the stage. Any other points you want to before we?
The only thing I could add is expectation.
Yeah.
The worst thing could happen if you have a wrong expectation. Especially, the worst expectation is it's gonna work by itself.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work by itself. You have to work it out. Simple as that.
So what if you had a customer that just signed with you and said, we'll get this done in 6 months or a year? And we're gonna, all the benefits you talked about with delivery efficiency and sort of customers, we're gonna have that in 6 months to a year. What do you tell them? Is that a realistic expectation? And Joe Sterry, I'd like to hear what you and I talked about. Go ahead. Setting expectations.
Setting expectations.
Go ahead.
Setting expectation. I would say the best expectation is follow the vendor's, step-by-step process. Ask them, okay, what do you think gonna be the steps? Okay, because if I know you need to migrate your old data first, set the pricing, then I start learning how to dispatch, then how to invoice. Then we go and put the mobile app in the truck. Don't force me, no. I don't want to do that, let's do the truck first. Guess what? It's gonna go to Southside. It's not gonna work. Then as a vendor, we try to set the expectation, give you, a roadmap. These are the steps, and these are the things we're gonna do within the next 3 months. Okay, within 3 months, if you do this, you're gonna be there. You canceling decisions, you're not there yet. You start, cheating the system, looking for a shortcut, not gonna work. Set your expectation right, then you get the goal.
Joe, tell me what you in terms of expectations and how much time does it take to implement the software and then change the way you do business to then get the benefits that you went in trying to get from the very beginning? How long is that?
It depends on the software, but obviously, it's a 2 to 5 year road most of the time to get fully implemented to where you're actually using every bit of that software the way it's supposed to be used. The other part is, like you're saying, I like to manage expectations with here's my team expectations, and then here's 3 of us own this company. Here's the other 2 owners' expectations that I'm trying to manage because I have a team that needs to be, the expectations need to be managed there, and it's different because I can, down the road we can see things that are happening every day. They're doing it every day, and then you have these other 2 owners that think that you buy a software and 6 months later it solved every problem, exactly what you're saying. So I've learned over time of managing that expectations is almost more important for me because of the fact that 6 months down the road, I'm not getting, why the hell is this not working? What's going on with this? I thought these people said it was gonna be this, and then they're wanting to scrap things that are legitimately working, but it's a 2-3 year road and they don't understand that. So, you know, managing that's very, very important.
That's probably one of the most important expectations is that it's a 2 to 3 year road, maybe even
Yep.
more.
Maybe more.
And if it takes you that long, you're not alone. It's, and then this point here on create continuous improvement teams. I mean, right up front, I mean, creating this is not a put in the software and it solves itself, but you can see it's a give and take, ebb and flow, little here, and just a step forward every time just to ultimately get the benefit of the software. Anything else on these solutions you want to amplify, or anybody on the panel want to talk about?
I just want to say it's, you know, it's, when you're installing new software, most of the time we're replacing software that's been in a company for 10, 20 years. So they're putting in new software for new technology, new efficiencies, things you haven't done before. So that's going to take time. The first goal is to get you to do everything you did today, and then start knocking out all those additional things you want to do. And a term that I've heard a lot over the years is when you're installing software, you're drinking by the fire hose. You're taking more, no matter how big you get your mouth, you can't get all that water. You have all this new information you've got to put into your company. It's going to take time. And while you may go live in 6 months or a year, to really make sure you get all of the benefit and really use 100% of what you just bought, it's going to take time, and it's going to take changing process and changing people. So you have to commit to that ongoing investment to continue to learn more and how to use it more. And every time you do that, you will get more out of it. Some of the best customers we have will bring trainers in every year to just retrain people. One, they got new people coming in, and we're going to talk about this some more. But it also allows you to take on those things you didn't get to in that initial implementation where you're just trying to get it up and running.
Yeah, because you have the go live date, and then you've got what follows the go live. So don't ever think of the go live as the project is finished. You just reached another milestone in a long-term project. Okay, anyone have any burning questions they want to ask before we move on to the next point? Okay, the next part we want to talk about, and Eileen, will lead the effort on talking about employees and the work practices and all the change that goes along with it.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got the project, and now it's the people. And let's face it, if you did the project without people, it might go 100% and everything would be perfect. But our team members, we really call them GALT. At GALT, we call them team members, not employees. We've got incredible team members that enhance the projects, right? And I know you guys have Post-its and papers, but I hope in your mind you have somebody at work, somebody that you think exemplifies your company's core values. And look, at GALT, we write down our core values and we have really cool branding, but I think core values also come from the heart. And this may sound a little too mushy-gushy out there for technology people and CEOs and things like that, but you know what you want from your company. Some of these companies are around for generations. You know that you have team members that come in early and stay late. You know that you have drivers that go through the snow, the sleet, the rain, the heat. They make it happen for you. So when you go through these projects and these implementations, they are your champions. And don't forget them. Because when you have those headwinds against you, you want to go to those team members that always have those core values. They also have this philosophy of like working smarter, not harder. And I know many companies don't think of goals as like SMART goals, specific, attainable, measurable with a time stamp. But I'm sure that there are people in this room and on your teams that create those SMART goals. They just do it intuitively, right? They get up in the morning and they're like, you know what? This process isn't working. I'm going to make it better. That continuous improvement that we're talking about. So that's kind of the Pollyanna, right? And then there's the other side of it. We wouldn't be doing our job up here on this panel if we didn't talk about those team members that kind of hinder what you're going to do. They hinder the fact that you're going to put all of this investment into technology, right? They say words and phrases like, we've been doing this a long time, we don't need to change. right? Or worse yet, I call these the real threats. They don't actually say anything. When they're in the meetings and stuff like that, they say it behind your back. That's not good work. I've been through this before. It really eats away at your progress. It really eats away at your company's performance. All right, so we've got the team members that enhance, and we've got the team members that kind of hinder, but where are the solutions? And this solution may be a little scary. The solution is greater transparency and engagement. It's kind of a fancy word for the more you reveal, the more open you are, the better chances you have of that implementation. Has anybody ever done an engagement survey or a pulse survey or anything? Gosh. Okay, wonderful. It's painful. It's certainly vulnerable. You kind of ask everybody in your company, you're like, hey, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. And then you sit with the scotch at the end of the day and you read the results. You kind of have to check your ego at the door. You truly have to say, I want to know what you think. But you have the power to determine what the questions are. So you have the opportunity to say, hey guys, what do you love about this software? What's the one thing you don't want to let go? Second question is, what would you love to improve? Just keep it simple. We do pulse surveys all the time. They're free, we text them, we email them, we send them out in English and Spanish. How are we doing? And leave a little comment section. I assure you, if you ask the question, there will be people that will give you good feedback. And if you gain nothing from this today, don't be afraid of that. And then don't be afraid to send out that email. Put a box of pizza down in the kitchen. Ask for people to give feedback. And then give it back to them. Say, I heard you guys. This is what you're most concerned about. And usually team members are going to say a couple of things. I'm most concerned about training and support. I've been doing this a long time. I got my system down. You've got to assure them that the training and support will be there and you'll take them along the way. Is this making sense? Does it feel like it's something that you could do? You can't do everything. You can't do engagement surveys. You can't do pulse surveys. You can't just pop up and do core values. So pick the one thing that you think will give the biggest impact to your company. So the other part of it too, I think, is that we've got to understand that perfection isn't what we're looking for. We're really just looking for progress. And when you have a milestone, you have a team member, you have a champion that says, you know what, I think it's working, you actually celebrate the smallest of milestones. You send it out to people. You make it Frappuccino Friday. You celebrate with pepperoni pizzas and say, we've gotten through this far, we couldn't have done it without you. I just want to give a testimonial. We do testimonials all the time. And I totally agree with you. Everybody always thinks it's the driver that's been there the longest and stuff like that. I don't think it is. We've done an implementation. We had a driver that was 37 years with us. But you know what we did? We met him where he is. That's in his truck. That's his office. We're doing this new technology. Tell me what you think. Tell me what works for you. So again, it's really about celebrating those milestones, taking it chip by chip by chip. And when Randy, when you were getting ready for this, you said, I mean, you've got to realize that there's a lot of people out there that don't have an HR department. And I totally get that. And I've been talking to you folks. Just pick one thing. Just pick one thing that would give the biggest impact. You can hire a consultant, you can hire another company. But if you talk to your people, you give them the why behind this implementation, I think it will get you into a better place. Okay, so we've talked about the project, we've talked about the people. That are customers.
Anyone, yeah, I want to amplify what said on the whole people side and what you experienced. Or does anyone have a question for any of the panel about resistance to change and dealing with the kinds of people that will try to maybe not intentionally, but they do undermine what's trying to be accomplished. Anybody have a question? Any question?
Yeah.
Well, just on the surveys you were mentioning, do you typically do those anonymous or?
100%. Do your surveys anonymously. No matter how, you can do a real complicated one, you can do a poll survey, you can do it anonymously. And I would say this, don't try to figure out who's answering it. Don't. Truly have the integrity to say, hey guys, this is an anonymous survey, what you say counts. We just did one, our stone department had a little bit of a disconnect, a lot of a disconnect. So we tried to figure out what was going on, and then we sent out a pulse survey a year later, and we had really good results. But the integrity of anonymous has to remain, it really does. We don't try to figure out who is answering that question. I think it hinders it. Wouldn't you? I mean, if somebody told you it was anonymous, and everyone's sitting around in a conference room trying to figure out, oh, I mean, she's definitely going to answer that. That's not what you want to do.
That sounds like so-and-so.
Yeah, don't do it.
All right, thank you. Good.
I want to add a point, I believe all of us as a software vendors know this. We are like a heart surgeon. Your company is alive, is working. It has to make money. And while it's making money, we want to change the company's heart, the whole software, the whole thing that runs the business. We cannot let it die. Okay? That's one of the things brings the people's resistance. Because they feel they're gonna die. No, I'm not gonna do this surgery. I'm gonna die. But we know it. We've done it many, many times. We changed this heart for many other companies, and it works. If you let us do it. If your team collaborates. Think about that. That's the heart surgery of your company. This is serious, but something that you have to cooperate, set your expectation, then it's gonna go smooth.
All right, we'll move on to the third major area, and it has to do with our customers and how your technology affects your customers. And John, do you want to lead us in that conversation?
Yeah, I think you have to remember that your customers are no different than any other person. They don't like change either. And when you're replacing an ERP, you're most likely going to be changing every touch point you have with your customer. Every invoice that comes out of the system, every statement, every email that you put out is different from system to system. So if you don't tell your customers and you surprise them with that change, they're going to be frustrated and they're going to be confused. And I'm a big believer in an informed customer is a happy customer. So it's really important that when we look at changing software, you not only have to look at what the change is going to do within your company, but how is it going to go external to your customers? And you want to be ahead of that and make sure that they're aware of those changes. We talk about, for the employees, giving them the why. Why do they need to know? Why is this important for us? Why is this part of our success in our future? Really, the same thing has to happen with your customers. So, again, putting in new systems means new technology. Are you texting today? Are you wanting to text your customers that they just got a delivery or their service technician is out? If you want to add that new level of technology, you have to be ready for it. Well, if you want to text people, what do you need? You need a cell phone number. Are you recording cell phone numbers of all of your customers? Are you engaging with them and saying, hey, we want to start texting you? You want them to opt in to that program? They're seeing your customers are no different in that they will judge your business against every other business that they come in contact with. So who are they really judging us against? Amazon, Uber. I mean, these companies that have done a really good job of communicating to customers, they're expecting the same thing from us. They want that because they're comfortable in those other areas. So it's really important when you're looking at the implementation is to say, what is going to touch our customers? What is new that I have to tell them about and the benefits of? What's going to change and how do I show them that? So I'm a believer in, how do you solve that? I have my current statement or invoice, and I have my new one. And if they're not the same, I should create a document that goes out before the new statement goes out that says, hey, we've made some changes. It's gonna improve our business, it's gonna make us more efficient. Maybe it'll drive your price down, probably not. But here's the things you're going to see. If they see it in advance and they're prepared for it, they're at ease. Because when they don't see it in advance, what do they assume? They assume the worst, unfortunately. They may be your customer for 40 years, but if something changes, it's just that human nature to say, oh, they're out to screw me here. What's going on? This doesn't look the same. So we want to look at these projects. We've got management getting on board, getting your people in line. We've got to think it all the way through to your customers. If you're changing your web portal and customers are using it today, that's again another area you have to touch base in advance and make them aware of those changes to have a smoother transition. Because that's really what it is. It's about creating a smooth transition for your employees and your customers.
Any of the other panel members you want to speak to the whole topic of customers?
Well, I just was gonna add too, when we've got team members that interface with those customers, it's really the marriage of that. So the why behind it for that team member to say, this is the scripting. Because if they're not on board, it's the worst thing, right? We've all experienced it, that you call somebody up so that the team member says, yeah, we don't like this software either, right? It's the worst. So we have something called Vault University where we do scripting and we role play. I know it's absolutely a lot of time and it's so worth it. We do scripting to say, where do you think your customers, you know your customers by name. Who do you think is going to be kind of put off by this new statement? Who's going to be put off by this texting? And how do we actually talk about that?
And it's not just your CSRs, it's every customer-facing employee has to be on board and talking that same pitch of why we're making this change, why this is good for you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. And so that they're all telling that same story. Because if they're all telling the same story, your customers will buy in. But if you have some that aren't because you haven't prepared them for it, or a customer asks them a question that they're not prepared to answer, they're going to struggle with that. And that's where it can go offline for you. So the more you can do to prepare all of your employees to communicate to your customers with the same verbiage, the same language, the same reasoning, the better off you're going to be through the implementation.
And I think that's really where the psychology behind this comes into play. About 8 years ago, we rewrote our product ground up, and we took a look at that and we said, well, how does the UI play into this just makes sense model, right? So when you're implementing things out to your customer-facing like portals, like statements, like invoices, taking a look at your customer base and even maybe surveying them and going, where are you struggling right now? Is there a struggle in how much do I owe before my discount versus after my discount? When is my discount date hit? If you can find those things and focus on them, that change may be hard at first, but after the first couple statements go out and they get this just makes sense mentality, it makes it a lot easier to move forward and implement your next technology goal.
So what do you do with that customer? I've been your customer for 30 years and you always come in my tank, it's 35%, now you're telling me you're going to come to, there's 20% to be more efficient. I don't like what you're doing to me as your customer. Or you're not going to email me my statement and not mail my statement or whatever. What should the company do to keep the customer happy while at the same time you're trying to accomplish your goals?
Can I go first?
Whoever wants to go.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the concept of expectation again, right? I'm going to bring up this note first, that hardest customer for us, which I believe might be the same for the other vendors, is did somebody switching from another platform to our platform, switching between the platforms. Because we always think, as well as your customer, if you are switching from something to something else, definitely this new system has everything we had plus. No. This is one system, this is another system. Things might be totally different. Don't think because you're upgrading to something better, more advanced, newer, it means you will get everything you had to the exact same way. You probably get the same goal out of it, but not the same way. You have to explain it to your customer. Hey, you want to never end up to run out, right? Now, for example, we have time monitoring system. We come up on 20%. It's more beneficial for us. It's more beneficial for you. And it is designed to make sure you're never, ever gonna have any run out. Does it make sense, Mr. Customer? The goal is the same. It's more efficient for everybody.
I'd equate it to arguments I have with my 12-year-old and 6-year-old. You pick your battles, right? You don't want to die on every hill with your kids all the time. So picking your battles and saying, what impact does this have to my business? And if it's a matter of delivering between 35% and 20%, that's a big thing, right? That's a lot of money for a business versus a 15-cent statement versus an email. Looking at those things and saying, which one are we going to pick and which one are we going to draw the hard line on? And once you draw the hard line, there's always ways to go back to the customer base and say, yes, I want to bring you down to 20%, but here's maybe 3 programs that we offer that help you mitigate that large cost of the living, right? Budget programs, level pay programs, finding those things that customer may not be taking advantage of today, and maybe a reason why you're implementing a new ERP solution and say, now we have these things to offer you that we didn't have before. So yes, we're going to bring you down, it's going to be a bigger hit to you, but here's 3 things that we offer that we never offered before to help with that.
I think too, you have to be open to the idea that as much as we never want to lose a customer, there are some customers you need to lose in order to move forward. And those are hard decisions to make, and it shouldn't be a lot of customers, but there are some that if you're changing your model for very specific reasons to make your company more efficient and profitable, and there's certain customers that just, no matter what you try, and you try a lot of different things, but they just don't get on board, they may not be the right customers. And that's okay, because then you can spend the time working with the customers that are the right customers for you, and you can go get more because you're becoming more efficient. So you have to look at each one of those things and say, this may be the hill I do want to die on. Sometimes it's not, but there are some times where that's not the right customer for us anymore. Maybe they were the right customer 15 years ago, but they're no longer the right customer for where this business is going. And so we need to make a change.
All right, we're going to use the remaining 15 minutes or so. We're going to be asking some questions. We have some questions here that address any one of these 3. Yes, Dan.
If you don't mind, when we put this session together, I spent a lot of time on it, and we went through more on the implementation side. But it's very interesting what you and Joe just brought up, that 6 months implementation, there's 2 to 3 years afterwards to really make it work. I want to ask the panelists a question. When I meet with my clients and ask them, you have a new back office system? Yes. Do you like it? Yes. Is it very powerful? Yes. What percentage of the power do you think we use? I never hear more than 20 to 25%.
That's a good question. Good
So,
question.
talking about after those first 6 months, just to challenge you guys, what do you think the software vendors could have done better to make sure they were using more than 20 to 25% of that power of the system? And Eileen, if you can answer from your end, what could the company have done better to make sure the employees are not coming back and saying, oh, I didn't know it does that, or I don't have time to do that, etc. So I'd really like to hear from both sides. What could make them use that system more often?
I could actually start because when you do these panels, you present yourself in the best light, right? Everything is perfect. So I'm really drawing from an experience where that has happened to us. And I think where we really kind of let down our team members was on the training and support. We put it into autopilot. We actually never did what I just told you to do with all that other stuff. So 6 months down the road, I never kind of took a pulse check and said, how are we doing? 12 months down the road, I never said, hey, how are you doing? The other part that I didn't really talk about is that there is different types of learners. And we really clue into different types of learners. There's different types of learners in this room. You guys are all incredibly successful people because you have figured out how you learn best. And one of the biggest problems when you do implementations is down the road, you leave people in the dust who had a different learning style, whether they're kinetic learners, whether they're learners that have to go through it, whether they're rote learners. And it doesn't, you can really intuitively, you know what works for some of them, but you do need to spend the time when people have fallen off 6 months to a year later and ask, gosh, I thought that driver was doing so well. Oh wait, they really needed more training and support. They really needed me to key into what they need. We all know that, right? There are some people like, don't give me the warranty book, don't give me the book, I'm not gonna read anything. And then there are those people that are like, hey, let's do a little pre-learning. This is what this software package, this is how it's gonna look on the portal. So from our perspective, we have learned that we've got to key into learning styles and do those same check-ins a year later.
Yeah, I think the overriding point of that is do not assume that just because they attended the training session that they are actually prepared for the new job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's more to follow. We have, here's a question. We've got 15 minutes left. This is mainly for the software providers. And this, have you ever seen a situation where a company is blaming the software company for the implementation that was way below expectations? And you're saying, you told me this software would do this, and it doesn't, and I'm changing softwares. And there's another part to this question is, the company buys the software, and 6 months into it, they find out they definitely sold me vaporware. This software does not do what they said it would do. They're horrible on support. I made a bad mistake. How does a company, two sides of that question, if they feel like they made a mistake in selecting the right software, how do they know that they made the wrong decision? And when do they cut bait and go on to the next? And then the second side of it is, has the software company been wrongly blamed for problems that the company has from their software? What had nothing to do with the software, was how it was being implemented, and everything that we're talking about with the people parts.
That never happens. Everyone communicates completely and everyone understands everybody else, right? No, that's definitely a real world thing that happens out there. And, you know, there's assumptions that are made as well, right? You're operating with your back office software right now, and you just assume that every other back office software does that exact same thing. Whether it's amongst terms, how auto pay transactions are processed. There's numerous things where there's just these underlying assumptions that say, that's not brought up during the sales process, we didn't ask that question because we assumed that every back office does it the same way. So taking those assumptions and not trying to find out, maybe during my sales process I have to ask those questions to not make that assumption, right? That's one of the biggest pieces to that, is asking the right questions and determining on the front side of that, what is crucial for my business? What is my foundation, right? That goes along with values and everything else. What is the foundation of my business? And does the software provider I'm looking at cover my foundation? Because Danny had said, you know, he talks to a lot of people and say, well, 10 to 20% is what I implemented. I'm a firm believer in you have to get that base and foundation rock solid before you go and add all of the fun bells and whistles onto it. You can't build a skyscraper with a crumbling foundation, it just hobbles over.
So two questions is, number one, have any of you as a software provider been blamed, wrongly blamed, for the software's not meeting the customer's expectations? Number one, that's the first question. And the second question is, have you come in a situation where the propane company made a big mistake, and they picked a software company that doesn't do what they say they would do, and they had terrible non-technical support? Can you speak, have you seen that? So speak to both of those questions.
I'd like to speak to that. So we have a customer, we were their third software. So the first software they decided to put in, for whatever reason, they said it didn't work. They spent $750,000 million on that software. After 3 years, they gave up. They went and tried something else. Another 3 years, another $750,000 down the drain. And they're looking at a third software trying to solve all their problems. And when we met with them, we said, well, this, you know, normally we're replacing software that's 10 or 20 years old, guys, you know. spent two and 6 years, what's going on? And they did a lot of self-reflection at that time. And the thing that they determined is they expected both of those prior softwares to do and run exactly like their, or the software they were still on, because they never got live on either of those other two softwares. And so the decision they made when they installed with us was they were really open to making changes and running the new software the way it was intended, and open to the fact that it was going to be different. And that was through the company, they had to get that message across, because again, it touches everybody in the company. I applaud management that can make those hard decisions, because I also see companies that struggle with a software that's not necessarily working for them, because somebody's decision, oh, it's my decision, we're going to do this, and it's not working for whatever reason, and because that person has got an ego or is hanging on to it, they're not willing to make that change. And so that's the downside to putting in software that's for whatever reason not working and you hang on to it. It's not every company can afford to switch in 3 years. I mean, yeah, it's big dollars, but it runs your business, it's operational, it's crucial. So you have to make the big decision to say, what do we need to do to make it right? And replacing your software isn't always the right choice. Really, again, if you're only using 20% of what you have, well, maybe you should invest or talk to that provider and say, how do we get more out of it? How do we make it work for us before we go and spend, the big dollars and the pain of switching software? Because it's painful. I think we'd all be honest and tell you, and I know I'm very vocal with prospects that we talk to. It's hard. We're going to change everything you do. Mostly the same, but somewhat different, a little bit different. If you're a righty, and now I ask you to right lefty, you'll figure it out. You'll actually get really good at it, but it's going to take time. And that's really almost what it's like replacing software. Because you're doing all the same stuff, but you're doing it a slightly different way, maybe a slightly different format. And then to answer Danny's question earlier, if you're only using 20%, again, I go back to that drinking by the fire hose. When you first on board, you're trying to get all the core stuff down. You have to continue to invest in your people and ongoing training to get more out of that software. And I think you need to look, as we said, to each one of your employees and say, okay, how do these people need to learn? Something else we see is a lot of companies, they take a team and say, these are going to be our super users and they're going to teach everybody else. Okay. But if they learn only a certain aspect of it, they're certainly not going to teach the things they don't know. So you only learn from the person who taught you. Why do you do it this way? Well, that's how Mary taught me how to do it. Well, Mary only learned or paid attention for a piece of that. So if you want to get the most out of software, you got to go back to the vendor and say, how do we do more? And some of our best clients are the ones that continue to invest and get more out of the software. And it's a cost. But the end game of that, by getting more out of the software, the big dollar that you spend, is well worth that investment to have somebody come in once or twice a year and work with your people to make them better.
So, hold on, give something out.
Yep. I want to add up this to answer your question. As a software company, as a vendor company, I see it as a part of my own responsibility to make sure this is a right fit, this is a right customer for us. The same way you're selecting us, we have to select you, because we don't see you as just a customer. It doesn't mean we sign a contract, give you username and password, and bye-bye. No, this is a partnership. This is a lifetime partnership. To answer your question, the training, the improvement never ever gonna finish. If you think that within the first year, everything is done, now we are good to go, no, you're sucks.
So, here's another question that we could spend a lot, how should a company pick a software, and what criteria should they use, and how much emphasis should they put on price? That's a whole nother question we don't have time for. But we have time for one more question, and it really just fits this. So, I'm a propane marketer. I chose Brand X software 6 months ago, and I'm not getting return calls on technical support. My system is down because it doesn't have the operational, and I'm in worse shape than what I was before, and I'm hearing that my software company is hanging on by a thread. And I'm looking for your advice. How do I know when I need to make the difficult decision, admit I made a mistake, and need to go with another software